what the heck happened? Welcome back to Above the Yellow Line. This time we're recapping Homestead and we're going to preview Martinsville a little bit. Starting with the Truck Series, this was a cutoff race to determine their Championship 4. Carson Hocevar has a statement win, locks himself into the Championship 4. Corey Heim has done the same in the past with a win. The two drivers to point their way in were Ben Rhodes and Grant Enfinger, so a very interesting Championship 4. All great storylines and great talents on their own, so we'll see who gets the championship when it comes time for Phoenix for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. As for the Xfinity Series, Sam Mayer finally gets his oval win. It didn't come far after his win from the Roval, so congrats to him and that team. They locked themselves into the Championship 4. John Hunter Nemechek, he's plus 44 above that cutoff line for the Xfinity Series with one race to go at Martinsville. That is their cutoff race, just like the NASCAR Cup Series. I think he's pretty safe on points, so I would say he's pretty surely going to be in the Championship 4. The question is, who takes that last two spots? And I don't know, it's really close. I think plus 3 above that cutoff line is Austin Hill and Cole Custer, and minus 3 is Allgaier. Everyone else below the cutoff line is in a must-win situation, so it's going to be interesting to see who makes it into the Xfinity Series Championship 4 with the points being that close around that line. And for those Dale Jr. fans out there, Dale was in this race at Homestead in the Xfinity Series, racing in the number 88. He did finish 5th, so a top 5 finish for Junebug was really good to see, especially after Bristol and the nightmare that was. He was going to win that race. I swear to you, he was going to win the Bristol race. Unfortunately, though, car caught on fire, did not finish that. So a deserved finish here at Homestead. Now, the Xfinity Series race could have gone several different ways. If there were drivers that didn't have issues like Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, I think they would have won maybe over Sam Mayer. Sam was in the right place at the right time, had a strong enough car to get the win. I think the same thing goes for the Cup Series. There were multiple drivers that could have won this race. It could have gone several different ways, but it went the right way for Christopher Bell, who did what he did last year. He won a race in the round of 8 to make it to the Championship 4, so he got the job done. He answered the call, and Christopher Bell will be racing for a championship yet again at Phoenix. Here's the insane part of this. Christopher Bell, middle of the race, was in danger of going a lap down. He had an awful handling car. I did not think he was going to be in contention for a lead, but this really is truly the point of don't give up, don't stop, because you never know which way this race is going to go, quite honestly. So really good job, really good fight from that 20 team. I would say maybe a bit of an underdog heading into the Championship 4. I mean, they've been kind of inconsistent this season, and I would say they're not really one of the strongest contenders for the championship, but we also saw, when the chips are down against this team, they pick them back up. So we'll have to see at Phoenix, but I think Christopher Bell is that wild card heading into the Championship 4. In second place, Ryan Blaney. Statistically, I've said this over and over, but this is one of his worst tracks on the NASCAR schedule. He only has one top 5 finish, now makes 2 top 5 finishes. Every other finish at this track has been outside the top 10 or outside the top 20. So for Penske to bring him this good of equipment when it really matters, I am very impressed. I am happy about that. And there were times that Blaney did have this race won, and I think he did benefit from the disasters of other drivers' days, but he also didn't necessarily have the strongest car out there to get the lead when he had it. Really, other drivers just started to reel him in. He wasn't able to retain it. Again, a top 5, top 3 day for Blaney is really good, exactly what he needed. So great job from that 12 team. And third, we had Tyler Reddick. Fourth, William Byron. Fifth, AJ Allmendinger. A nice top 5 for that team. Sixth, we had Bubba Wallace, a great recovery after falling way back towards the beginning of this race. Same thing goes for the 8th place finisher of Joey Logano, who had to start this race to the rear following a wreck in practice. In 9th, we have Eric Almirola. This is his first top 10 since Daytona, and if we want to go back to a non-super speedway track, this is his first top 10 since Richmond in the summer. Going backwards, 7th to Ty Gibbs, and then the 10th place finisher of Austin Dillon. They were top 10 cars all day. I was very impressed with their consistency. This was one of those races where I do sit back and I'm like, what the heck happened? You saw the dominant cars all day long, and they were not in contention for a win at the end of the day because they did not finish this race. And I think Dom Joseph, A2IL crew member, said it best. He said, this is a moment where over-cautious met over-aggressive. Larson was trying to maximize his pit entry during green flag stops to beat Ryan Blaney, or at least come close to beating Ryan Blaney to pit road. Blaney slowed down a lot more than Larson expected, and Larson locked his tires trying to brake really fast and went into the sand barrels. He clipped Blaney in the right rear, but the damage to the 12 was not too bad. Larson explained in his post-race interview at the Infield Care Center that he was trying to maximize his pit entry. He was trying to beat Ryan Blaney to that line because he knew if Ryan Blaney was able to get on pit road and get off pit road first, he most likely would have won the race if things stayed green. Larson also said that he was upset with himself. He could have done a better job judging his pit entry. But here's the thing. For those of you that are saying this is somebody's fault or whatever, I would say this really isn't a fault of anybody. I do think Larson was overly aggressive when he didn't have to be. I mean, granted, he's already locked into the championship 4. That team really has nothing to lose but everything to gain. The question is, do you want to come out of this race with stage points? Do you want to come out of this race with a playoff point? Do you want to come out of this race with a win that'll help you widen that points gap going into Phoenix? Or do you want to risk everything to try to get a win? And I think Larson maybe thought the win was the better way than nothing at all, or basically an all or nothing approach, I should say. So for that, I think Larson risked more than he should have. For Blaney, slowing down farther than he should have on pit road, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think he's known to make some pit road errors. His pit crew's known to make some errors here or there. I think if you're overly cautious, you're going to minimize those errors. Granted, if things worked out and Kyle Larson was able to go ahead of Ryan Blaney on pit road and get out first, then Blaney probably would have thought back and was like, man, I should have sped up a little bit more on pit road just to maximize my pit road entry. But clearly that was not the case. At the end of the day, though, Blaney was able to finish this race again, a solid P2 finish, while Kyle Larson did not finish this race. Too much damage to his car after barreling into those sand barrels. Martin Truex Jr. didn't finish this race after some motor issues, and literally right before that, Denny Hamlin hit the wall fighting for position with Ryan Blaney. I feel like a lot of these involve Ryan Blaney. Apparently something broke on the car, a steering issue that took him out of the race. And Hamlin was one of the few drivers that tried to gain track position during the race by having a long pit run strategy, which did work to his advantage. And I do think if it wasn't for this, he could have come away with a win or a top 3. And after the race, Ryan Blaney was pretty salty about how he was raced by Denny Hamlin. He said, quote, "Oh, well, he tried to slide me 2 or 3 times, failed miserably, and then just decided to use me up." He then went on to say, "If you're going to slide somebody and commit. Don't halfway do it and use me up." So what does he say? Hack? I think he was that today. So heading into Martinsville, I think Blaney's going to remember this. Anybody that's had any type of beef with Denny Hamlin, if they have a shot of getting into the championship 4, is going to remember those moments during this season. And if it comes down to Denny Hamlin and them on that last lap for a point, kind of like Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin last year, even though Ross kind of cheated the system but did an amazing job with it, I think Denny Hamlin might not make the championship 4, knowing how many paybacks that he owes essentially. So I would watch out for Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin. Maybe in Martinsville, maybe they put this aside, I don't know. And yes, points are still kind of close around the cutoff line, but I guess not as close as I made them seem, because with those DNFs from Truex and Denny Hamlin, they fall below that cutoff line. They are -17, and Ryan Blaney moves above +10. Reddick is -10. Buscher is clearly in a must-win situation. He had an awful race at Homestead. He's -43 to the good. And Byron can feel pretty confident. He's +30. All he has to do is just not make mistakes during this race, and he will be fine. So with Martinsville coming up for Ryan Blaney, this is statistically one of his best tracks. However, he doesn't have a win there yet. If I'm looking at the guys below the cutoff line, Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr., this is statistically one of their best tracks. Denny Hamlin has 5 wins here. Truex has 3. Hamlin also has the 3rd best average finishing position of all the active drivers at Martinsville. And if we look at these 8 contenders for the championship right now before this cutoff race at Martinsville, we see that 5 of them have won at this track before. Remember, Christopher Bell won this race last year to get himself into the championship 4. Kyle Larson won this race in the spring, while Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin had top 5s in that race. So nobody's really out of it. Even Chris Buescher, I know that they didn't have a great race in the spring here at this track, but he's won at Bristol. We know that they can do generally well at the short tracks. It's just a matter of his team giving him the equipment he needs. But again, Chris Buescher has to win this race if he's going to get into the championship 4. There is no way he can point his way in. You all know I love this track. This track really allows the drivers to do anything they want as long as they have the car for it, and you have to be patient with your tires. This track, I kind of compared it to Darlington in terms of tire wear and how this track eats up your tires, and that makes the race really fun when you're on a tire strategy call. I also love how this track is high risk, high reward. You can rip the wall and get the most speed out of your car, or you can play it cautiously and try to run the bottom of the track to get some speed there, but it's very rare that we see cars that are able to do that. This race saw more lead changes than last year's race, and we saw 3-wide battles, sometimes 4-wide battles this weekend at Homestead. We saw some great battles for the lead as well, and the leader couldn't always totally get away. Sure, there was maybe like a 1 second, 2 second gap at some points, but the second place driver was always able to kind of get their bumper back to the bumper of the first place contender. So I really did enjoy this race. I'm going to give it an 85%, which is definitely above the yellow line. Again, I am pleading with NASCAR, hopefully 2025, that we see this track on the schedule twice. I think once is not fair. It makes this race pretty scarce and people are going to want to get their tickets for this event, so I understand that. But this race needs to be on the schedule twice, and I would love to see it back as a championship race for sure. It is one of the best tracks on the schedule. I'm going to stop there before I get on the soapbox, but yeah, Homestead needs to be on the schedule more than once. The Xfinity Series and Cup Series will determine their championship for this weekend. The Xfinity Series race at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday, and Sunday we have the Cup Series race starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, a night race. It's going to be so much fun. Make sure to check out AboveTheYellowLine.com for more about us and to visit our merch store, as well as visiting TobyChristie.com for more up-to-date motorsports news. You can also find our social media pages there for more up-to-the-minute news releases. But that is it for this episode of Above the Yellow Line. Make sure to tune into Martinsville so we can finalize our championship for 2 races left this season. I am really nervous, really excited. Should be a great 2 final races. Thank you all so much for joining me though today, and until next time, I'll see ya. Bye. Want more NASCAR news? Make sure to watch the videos on the screen and click the links in the description.